Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope everyone's doing well. This is Chris. I'm one of the instructional designers here at WTMU. We're excited to have you all with us today. We're going to be closing out the week today for the virtual learning boot camp with creating meaningful online discussions, and we'll get started here shortly. If y'all can do me a favor, will you go on to the chat box and just type your name, what department you work in, and then where are you at nowadays, since we are working, most of us are working virtually or at home. So where are you at nowadays? If you'll just add that in the chat, your name, what department you work in, and then where are you at nowadays. Let's go ahead and start using that discussion feature, the chat feature. And then we will get started a few minutes right after 1:30. We're definitely excited to support the faculty, so thank you all for being here. Thank you, Bonnie. Awesome. So we have everyone chiming in the chat box. Great. Most of you all are at home. Some of you coming back and forth on campus. I have the pleasure of coming to campus, and so, but social distancing, of course, and we're required to wear masks and stuff, and so, but yeah, we are happy to have you all, to support you all as you get ready for the fall semester. So we'll get started here in a minute.
I'm jealous. Somebody said they're in a comfy chair at home.
It's almost 5 o'clock.
I had to laugh. Vanessa says she's in a homemade office in a closet under the stairs.
Hey, we got to remain a little bit funny here because, otherwise everybody would cry. Chris, you're muted.
Thank you. At least it was in the beginning. I was saying we got to build community, and so discussions and chat, the features allow us to be able to do some sort of connecting and community making in an online course. And so hopefully today everyone will take away some ideas that you could apply for your courses, whether it's hybrid, online, or face-to-face. You can use what you learned today to support your teaching and your students' learning. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. The objectives for today is to help share best practices for online discussion boards. We hope that it'll help you think of a variety of ways to integrate engaging and effective online discussions. Also, want to include simple steps to help you create your discussion boards in WT class and how to link that discussion boards within learning modules. So if you're using the template, which we hope that many of you are, you'll be able to follow these simple steps to create your discussion boards and link it to the appropriate learning module. And we'll also go over how to access your discussion boards in the gradebook. There's a few ways so that you can grade your students' work and give them feedback if needed. And so you can continue to build that interaction in an online course or hybrid course. Lastly, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to try something new here where we're going to do breakout rooms and have faculty share great ideas or just your ideas on the use of discussion boards too, and so that you guys can learn new methods or strategies to facilitate a possible discussion in your online course or even your face-to-face course if you do hybrid. And so let's start off with our breakout room. So we have our faculty that are going to be, y'all are the students today, and you're going to go into the breakout room and answer a few quick questions with your group. You don't know who's going to be in your group, but the agreements for our group breakout discussions is that someone can volunteer to lead a quick summary after you guys have your discussion. And so if everyone wants to take notes or just be prepared to just remember the information that you're sharing and discussing, so then someone who volunteers can share a summary out loud to everyone in this training. Each faculty takes about 60, maybe 90 seconds to share some ideas, and then just be open to ideas. So these are the agreements that I'd like to establish. And if you have any other ideas to add to the agreement, you're more than welcome to add it to the chat box. I think that when we are teaching online, we try to figure out how can we make it more interactive. And so if you do have any ideas for group agreements, feel free to add it. And Ivana, if you'll just share it out with us if anyone has any other agreements. So the questions before you go into the breakout room are going to be, what ways do you facilitate and structure discussion in your face-to-face class and or online course? And also, what has worked well when using discussions in your WT class? I am going to put these questions in the chat box. So before I put everyone in a breakout room, make sure that you click on the chat box. Let's see. And then you'll see the questions there. So I'm gonna put you all in a breakout room. You're gonna get a message to join your breakout room. So make sure that you join it and then get ready to interact with your fellow faculty members and share your answers with those two questions. And then after about 5-6 minutes, I'll bring you guys back out here. And if the person that agreed to lead the summary will be ready to share, what did your group share? What did you guys learn? So here we go. I love it. Sorry, Julie. I guess folks are coming back and
they're getting cut off. Yeah.
Yes, but that's good.
Yeah.
That is
So
really awesome.
So I'm going to be brand new at teaching in this format. So I'm just mostly listening to all the great ideas from veteran faculty.
Well, it's awesome to have a space where you all can share ideas and learn. And so let's do this. If you're in breakout room 1 with Julie or Eric or any of the other faculty members, who in that group wants to share a quick summary? You can just unmute and then take a few seconds to share a quick summary.
I think, was that our group with Vanessa and Greg also and AJ?
Yes, yep, that is.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, I didn't catch everyone's name. I'm on my iPad. So, okay, so I was the note taker for our group. We spent most of the time talking about in-class discussion. And so one consideration we had was for size, that it's much easier with a small group than a class of 50 to do that. A lot of us shared that we like to pair up the students, either pair them up or put them in small groups and give them a chance to speak with each other before then going to whole class discussion. That way they have a chance to share notes with each other and compare ideas before then presenting those to the class. It makes it a little less scary. Think, pair, share is one method that uses that. There's also discussion about how considering the personalities in the classroom, especially those who kind of are alphas and will take over the entire group session. And so a few of our group members actually said they like to put all of the alphas in one group so that those who might be a little more shy can have a chance to speak in their smaller groups, whereas the alphas can figure out amongst each other how they will handle that, and so it doesn't take away from those who might have a more challenging time speaking up. So thinking about different stages of the discussion, giving a low stakes chance before they have to share with the whole class. Not, at least those of us who spoke in the group, not many of us had experience with the online discussions. I think many of us are going fully online, or had the remote teaching in the spring. That was the emergency compared to actually planning to do it in the fall. So we had, I believe it was Vanessa who shared a lot of good advice, starting with an open-ended question in the discussion board that the students respond to, and then staggering the due dates for that. So they have a due date for their initial post, and then another due date to respond to those initial posts, and then one more due date where they can offer rebuttal, so it keeps that discussion going. She also provides a rubric with very clear expectations on word counts, on how to respond, that it has to go beyond I agree and actually ask questions and be an engaging discussion. I think that was 60 seconds more.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's great. So we'll skip over to breakout room 3 with Bonnie, Catherine, Katie, and Shayna. Do y'all have a volunteer that will share y'all's summary real quick? Or do I, anyone? I see someone laughing. I'm about to pick on, Bonnie, will you jump on and share a quick summary?
I think I did a lot of listening because I haven't done this much before. We said that a lot of open-ended questions, but also using the opportunity to have teachers, to have students teach each other. So asking questions that would ask them to force them to review and to create questions, even in exam questions, on the basis of their responses, and that causes them and reinforces the idea to be involved in those discussion posts. People did not express concerns with some of the things that concerned me, which is how you write, how you create tone in a discussion board, because I know that as a person I can take the sharp edge off saying something snarky with a smile or with an explanation if I catch that they're not understanding that I'm teasing, but I can't do that in so I'm concerned about that, and I think that everybody else found that has not been a problem for them, so I'm a little comforted by their responses. And I'm sorry, I'm not doing justice to the 2 people in my group who really had a lot of experience with this, so I apologize for limited answers.
No need to. I think when I jumped in y'all's break room, I was listening on when y'all were talking about the review and giving students opportunities to form questions for the review, for a midterm or final. So I think that could be a great way, depending on how you structure your discussion board for a midterm review or a final exam review, where you have your concept list and you have your students create questions based on those concepts that you're teaching in your courses. And so we'll have a little bit more time here to share in another breakout room, but we're going to continue to move on. And so when many of you might be new to creating discussion boards on WT Class, and so when you do create thoughtful opportunities for your students to discuss what they're learning, it's going to promote social interaction, student engagement, meaningful reflection, and knowledge construction. when you're in an online environment, you sometimes think of, you might not be able to accomplish this, but through discussion boards, if set up with the structure and facilitation, you can accomplish this. And using different modes of communication, not just text, you could use photos, you could use videos, so that you could, think about adding a little bit more of that human aspect, where they can see you, they can hear you. You might just put a photo of you thumbs up and you type up your response, or you create opportunities where you are able to engage with your students to promote these different areas. And so when both the faculty and students are able to participate in the discussion, it'll deepen their understanding and learning, and you both look forward to participating in these discussions. And so I would, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, I would want you all to consider thinking about, how do you pace your discussions? You might not want to do a discussion every single week. You might want to consider doing it every 2 weeks, and using those structures where you have a few deadlines where you promote the initial response, the reactions and rebuttals, like the breakout room one was talking about. And so it's really important to begin from the start of the semester to have discussions, and so you can begin to promote this type of community in an online course. And so tips for creating online discussions. So to help faculty get started in creating meaningful discussions, we want to have you all think about these tips. And I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Drumheller in the College of Fine Arts and Humanities to support the college's goals. And we worked together and created these tips to help faculty to think about creating their online discussions. And so convey clear expectations. It's important for faculty and students to know what they're going to be discussing and what they're going to be able to jump in and get going and get started to complete the discussion. Think about the questions you want them to answer, specific requirements and expectations. Some requirements you might want to consider would be include how many posts, include how many replies. You might want to consider a word count, 250, 500 word count, to help them provide initial thoughtful response. But keep in mind, when you ask questions that you want, that are interesting, that you want to read, and that are interesting to the students and their learning journey, they're more likely to provide probably even more, thoughtful responses. And so have those clear expectations so that they know what they have to do. Also, communicate. Faculty should communicate with their students from the start. Your feedback and interaction is key to helping create that community, promote the engagement, knowledge construction, and really academic discourse with the expert in the field and their peers. And so if they get to interact with you in this learning journey in a discussion board online, they're going to learn from what you're modeling and apply it to when they have to respond it to their peers. There also might be, when you're looking through your students' responses, there might be a student that's not going to get a response. And so just keep an eye out on those students and helping them know that you see them, you're interacting with them, and then hopefully other students will jump on and respond to them. And so rotating your responses and making sure you're not always responding to the same students so that you can really interact with all of your students. You don't necessarily have to interact with every student. You can rotate those interactions and allow your students to interact with one another. And then the other tip is offer choices. This is going to really it'll make it more interesting. You'll have student engagement. It won't be as monotonous where you have the same questions every week where they're answering. And so offer choices to keep things interesting and alive in your discussions, and you'll see more interaction, you'll see more engagement. So allow students to choose from a few prompts. Maybe you have 2 to 4 different prompts for one discussion. And then you might think of other variety formats as well, so that it changes up the discussion board. It keeps it interesting. And so again, choose questions you care about, because you ultimately are going to read through every one of them. And so if there's something that you're truly passionate about, share those thoughts with your students and ask those questions, because you're going to be more passionate in your responses. You're going to be excited to share your insights and your expertise with your students versus just a chapter reflection. And so ask questions that you care about. And try to avoid the same questions each week, because regurgitating the material is not going to be something that is going to be super interactive for you and your students. And so use these tips as you think of different ways to develop your discussion board. So there's different variety of online discussions. And so I think this is a great way for you all to start thinking about, okay, what can I do in my online course? How can I innovate discussions in my online course? Your students are used to interacting with each other online. They have been using social media, they like, comment, they interact. And so how can you create an innovative discussion that will allow them to feel like they're able to interact with their professor in a safe but also challenging discussion where they can really use their brain muscles to grow what they're learning in your class. And so because in most cases they feel safe to like and comment and refute ideas in social media, so why can't we do it here? So take time to think about different ways to implement engaging discussion. So again, different prompts to draw on different perspectives, but also student interests. Guest lectures. You might find that you have a TEDx lecture that you'd like to include, or maybe one of your colleagues that has presented at a conference that you have a recording of. You can add that to a discussion board and ask them questions based on that video lecture. You could do scenarios in the field. So if there's a specific scenario that they are familiar because you've provided lectures or they've read materials, and you're able to write up scenarios, and they need to provide the best solution to the scenario, or what would they do next based on the scenario that they read. That could be another form of discussion. And then keep in mind, pace your discussions. Think about every other week or twice a month, not necessarily every week. And I've already said this, I just want to reinforce it, using different forms of media. So your video, your photos, your students are going to get creative. They could probably do memes to add humor. They're willing to post photos and videos, and so they will follow your lead based on what you structure. And so I'm excited to see and hear what you guys do with your discussion boards. So now we're going to do a quick breakout session real quick. Same group agreements. Here are the questions. So how often do you think it would be appropriate for students to participate in discussion throughout the semester? And what types of discussion formats are you interested in trying this semester? So I'm going to put the timer on for 5 minutes, and you'll get that 60-second notification. So breakout rooms will begin now. So go ahead and join. and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. Y'all are getting used to the breakout rooms and discussions. I think that's great. And this is something that you could do with your students, if you do meet via Zoom. And so let's hear from the other two groups that didn't get a chance to share from the first breakout room. So let's see, Eric, your group, do you mind sharing what you guys?
Sure, yeah, it's been a good couple discussions. Daniel teaches Tech Com. He's had a lot of great ideas. He's got some experience. So Rigel and I were pretty much picking his brain for ideas. And so how often he does them weekly. And so for me in Tech Com and for environmental science, and he ties them, the formats, to progress reports on large class projects where they need to work together going through the semester. And so tying it to that with weekly reports, which, I have, so that with your scenarios in the field, and we do a lot of that in environmental science. So I would be interested in that sort of, weekly or biweekly, if it's an ongoing thing and there has to be constant, a lot of engagement with the professor then in that case, because it's an extension of their project, work together. So Daniel, did that cover it pretty well?
I think you did a good job. Good summary.
Thank you all. Okay, so then let's move to the next group. Let's see, breakout room 4 with Amy, Misty. Do you all have a volunteer that could join us and just share a quick summary? Thank you, Eric.
Muted. Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I wrote a few notes. Several of us are really new to it. I think Anita and Raylene both mentioned they want to implement but hadn't used them before, and really just looking for some ideas. Raylene with her writing course. I didn't catch which course Anita would be using them in with. Amy Clifton mentioned that she's very intrigued about having students interact via, social media type things like, pics and sharing memes and videos and stuff like that. We didn't really discuss timelines there or how often, but I would have a couple things to say on that in a minute. Misty Gamble mentioned that, she's primarily interested in using discussion board to try to embed different types of multimedia, videos, lectures, podcasts, PDFs of readings. And she's going to be teaching a face-to-face studio art course, but would really like to supplement that with these discussion board postings. For me, myself, I'm still trying to think in my courses how to use them. Again, before I had been teaching face-to-face and had been using discussion boards to supplement and as a way to sort of incentivize students engaging class. And so in terms of how often, I would allow students to post twice before each exam, and then they could get bonus points from that. I would grade them. It wouldn't have a grade column, but I would add it onto their exam. And so again, that was based on their class discussion. They could then later go back and post a summary of it. But now I have to find a way to where they can directly post in there, and probably it would be, something like what you suggested, having a couple of discussion points, maybe after a reading assignment, come up with a few questions, maybe let them pick out of a list, answer something, and then maybe that would be points for some low stakes type bonus they could get added onto their, heavier assessments, things like that. So, and if I missed anything else that was brought up, feel free. Anybody else in the group can chime in.
Thank you. So I think like tying it to the bigger picture, to what you want your students to accomplish, in your learning objectives, is something that you guys can think about as you think more about how are you going to create meaningful discussions throughout the semester. And so if there's like a theory in your class or a model that you really want them to have a deeper understanding, think about that and think about the number of discussions you want to. And if you're new to discussions, you might want to consider doing 4 to 5 throughout the semester, so that it is something that you could build on later, in the spring if you want to do more. I think that, really honing in on what you want to do with 4 to 5 initially could be really helpful in your teaching online. And so thank you all for, sharing your ideas for the different types of discussions and timelines for discussions. Now we're going to go into the simple steps for discussion board. I'm going to go ahead and do a demo on how to activate, how to create your discussions in WT class. And so one of the things that I would like for you all to kind of take note of is discussion board has a similar setup and structure for other communication tools in WT class. And so if you get used to using discussion board and you eventually want to explore other communication tools in WT class, this could help you. And so there's the other communication tools are blogs and journals. And so the steps that you're about to learn today, once you kind of get used to it, then you could explore other tools. And so I'm gonna go through the steps. You'll get access to this PowerPoint, which will have screenshots and steps, but I'm gonna jump in to a course. So does everyone see this? Okay, perfect. So this is a dev course, and it has the course template. And so if you guys have been through our virtual learning bootcamp, one of the trainings led by Yvonne, one of our instructional designers, taught the course, the training on our template. And so if you copy this into your fall course, you'll have access to this format, and then you'll see that there's a discussion board tab to your left. Your discussion boards will always be in your course tools. So if you go to course tools, you'll see discussion board here. And so but the course template has the discussion board already embedded and has your Muddiest Point forum and your meet and greet form already created. Of course, you all can edit and change the title of any of those and edit the questions. And so first, I'm going to go over how to create your discussion boards. And so when you're using the template, all you have to do is click on discussion board, and you can click create forum. And so this is where you'll be able to copy any of your questions and your prompts and expectations into the form. So we would recommend that you write up all of your questions in a Word document or in a space that you could easily access, and then create your discussion boards all at once. And so when you create your online course, there's so many pieces. And so if you can focus on one piece and then move on to the next, that's only going to help you complete each step and be able to create your online course. And so we would recommend going into a Word document, typing up your questions for the 4 to 5 or however many discussion boards you want to create. And so you'll click discussion board, click create forum, and then this is where you'll be able to add your title to your discussion board. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do title. And then this is where you'll be able to type your questions. expectations, and I spelled that right, I thought, yeah. Expectations, and then once you're done with that, then you'll be able to go through the different settings to be able to make it available for your students. You'll be able to add it to your gradebook. And so I'm going to go through each of these settings and explain it to you real quick. And a lot of this is a little familiar because most of the tools in Blackboard and W2 class has similar settings. And so availability is the first thing. So I'm going to go ahead and make it available. I'm going to set this discussion to display maybe during the first week of class. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And until that Monday, give the students about a week or however long you want to give them, and you can set the time. And then you'll be able to go into the forum settings and apply any of the settings. All of this is by default right now. And so I'm just gonna go over real quick. So there's the standard view, or you can, which we recommend, so keeping it on standard view. But there is also, participants must create a thread in order to view other threads in the forum. And so you could do that, but they would be able to create their thread before they see anything. So they can't read any responses. And it's their original work. So that's a really great feature for discussion boards and ensuring authentic work of your students. And then you'll be able to connect it to your gradebook. So if you're going to grade your discussions, do make sure that you select this and add the number of points possible. And so then it will be aligned to your gradebook. And so then from here, you'll be able to put a needs grading status where after they do one post or two posts or whatever the requirement is, then the student will get, and you will get, a needs grading that their discussion board is ready to be graded. And so we would definitely recommend that you wait to grade your students' discussion until after the deadline. Because if you do grade it and then they decide to respond more, it might put another needs grading in. And so just to reduce confusion, we would recommend grading until after your deadline. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put 2. Let's see, I'm gonna change it to 1 for now in this demo. And then you can put the due date, and then you'll be able to do that, and it'll align to the calendar in Blackboard. And I'm gonna go ahead and select due date by midnight. And then you're able to add a rubric as well. We're not going to go over rubrics, but you're more than welcome to schedule a one-on-one consultation, and we can share how to connect rubrics and share the materials that we have. This is a great way for grading your discussion boards based on a rubric and being able to provide feedback to your students. And so you can link it to a rubric. So there are a few other options where you'll be able to subscribe to a discussion. We would recommend that you don't necessarily need to change any of these settings, but one way that faculty or even students use this is the muddiest point or Q&A discussion board. So there's going to be a subscribe button where you'll be able to subscribe to a specific discussion board, and you'll get an email when someone posts in that discussion thread. So if you subscribe to the Muddiest Point forum discussion or a Q&A discussion where your students can post questions, when they post in it, you'll get an email. And so then you can respond to it, or maybe another student would respond to their question if they knew the answer. So for the Q&A or Muddiest Point forum, we would recommend you subscribing it so you can see any questions that come in from your students. And so if you'll notice here, create and edit, there are allow anonymous posts, that's marked out, allow author to delete own posts, allow author to edit own published posts. So these features are marked out right now because we have selected that they have to create their thread in order to see other threads in the forum. And so one, we probably would not recommend allowing anonymous posts so that you know who is sharing their responses or creating their discussions. And so, but if we go back to standard view, you'll see that these other options are available. We've marked out that anonymous post. So every post that is done has to be, you'll be able to know who posts. You could allow author to delete own posts, but we would recommend from refraining from that, just because then you get into, what if they said they did turn it in and they try to, you don't want them to delete anything or even edit anything at that point, just to avoid, if they have access to editing it, then they can, change it after their grade and say, I did respond. We don't want faculty to be in that situation, so we wouldn't recommend you guys checking those boxes. But be very careful to, when you decide to, create your discussion boards, do not uncheck one of these. I helped out a faculty member earlier today, and he accidentally unchecked allow members to create new threads, and so his students could not create a discussion thread at all. So you want to make sure that stays there, and you could always go back into the settings. Allow file attachments, so you could allow your students to attach draft paper, and they can participate in a discussion to provide peer-to-peer feedback, and you could also join in and provide feedback on a paper or a case study. Allow users to reply with a quote, and so they can quote based on what the student is saying and provide their ideas or reasons why they're stating that quote. And then force moderation of posts. That's something that we don't, that you all, before it posts, you would have to read it. And so we don't really recommend that, just because that's additional work for y'all. And so the other things are additional options: allow post tagging, allow members to rate posts. That's something that we definitely, that's just, if you want to learn more, we're happy to sit down with you to go over these different options. But ultimately, we would recommend standard view and setting it to the discussion, to the grade book, and putting the due date, and then just keeping these standard settings, and then click submit to create that discussion board. If you want your students to must participate in a thread before they see anyone's responses, that is perfectly fine. One of the things that if you do that, then let's see. So if you will, all the other settings won't be available, like the edit, delete, which is fine. So, and then you'd click submit. But I'm going to go back to standard view for right now. So that's how you set up your discussion thread. That's one step of setting up your discussion thread through your the discussion menu tab right here. So you'll see my practice discussion board right here with the title, and then you'll see type your questions and expectations. And so this area right here is, we would recommend that this is an area for faculty to create the discussion boards, and we would recommend that you hide this link right here. So then you could actually link the discussion board in the appropriate learning module as you develop your online course. And so If you have 4 discussion boards to create, or 5, you would click on discussion board, click create form, and follow those steps. Copy the title from your Word document, copy your expectations, your questions into that area, and then do all the settings, and then click submit. And so once you're done creating all of your discussion boards, then you can link it into the content area. And so here's an example of an introduction discussion board right here, where there's 3 different prompts. So they're all a little similar. One is just text and then posting a photo of something that is outdoors that you admire. So it's a little low tech. It is not requiring them to post a video. The second option is post a video. So if they feel comfortable filming themselves to do a intro video and giving a tour of their current learning space, they can choose to do that one. Or they can do the other option where they can do a photo collage and tell us who they are with using 5 photos, and then typing up their introduction and explaining those photos. And so you can give prompts where there are low-tech options, but then there's also high-tech options, so that when your students do decide to choose those prompts, they can choose it based on their comfortable, like their ability with technology. Because it can get a little frustrating with, if a student is not technologically savvy and they may not know how to link their video. And so giving them 3 options could be helpful too. And so any questions on setting up your discussion threads before we move on to linking the discussion thread into the learning modules?
I have a question. If a student if you allow them to edit posts and they make an edit, does it leave a notification with a timestamp when they edited it?
I am going to defer that with, is Krista, if you could answer that question. I don't think there is a timestamp. I believe it just automatically edits. And so
Will it say if it edits?
Question.
When faculty give the option to edit the student's initial thread, do they get a timestamp of like when their edits happened?
I can't, it only gives you one timestamp, but I can't remember if it's when the initial post was or when the edit post was. I think that it's the edit.
Date and time.
Okay. And if they do edit it, it gives a notification that the post has been edited?
So I think that's where the tricky part is that it'll give this timestamp, but doesn't necessarily say it's edited. It just allows them to edit. And so that's why I think we would, when you do grade your discussion boards, we would recommend until after the due date. And so then you prevent that academic integrity of the student saying, oh, I did it, and it has all the answers. Why did you give me a C?
Right. Okay.
One way I handled that I didn't know you could edit. So if my students didn't, I just had them do a repost on their own post with the correct one or with the edited one. Then I had record of both. Does that make sense? Like if I had them do a discussion board, sometimes they'll submit it and they will have forgotten something, like maybe they didn't put their sources. So
Right.
then and they could only post once. So I said, just reply to yourself with the corrected version.
Yeah, that's good advice. And so you're responding to them, and then they're getting a second chance to be able to update and just reply as a thread to their original post.
And one thing to remember with doing edits and stuff like that is that if you do tell students that they have to post before they can see all the other students' posts, you may get into a chance where they post a dummy post and then say, oops, something went wrong. Oh my goodness, what happened? But now they've had a chance to surf everybody else's initial posts and they don't actually create their own unique post. That's part of why we generally don't recommend editing posts, is to ensure that the post that they submit is actually what they intend it to be submitted, not a surfing of everyone else's answers.
Thank you, Krista, Yvonne, Katie. Thank you, Steve, for your question. Okay, so talked a little bit about subscribe. I'm just going to show you that real quick. So this is the Q&A form right here, and you'll see there's a subscribe button where you all can subscribe to the Muddiest Point forum, or if you decide to change the name of it to Q&A forum, you can subscribe to it. So when a student does post, you'll get that email notification, and so you'll be able to respond. Another great thing to have just a Q&A discussion thread. Your students will get to, hopefully support each other and answer questions when they know it. I know sometimes you might think, well, hopefully they don't answer it with the wrong answer, and so, but when you create this or you add a Q&A form, you want to make sure you include those expectations. If you know the answer and you're 100%, certain it's the answer, please respond and support our learning community. But then also for you to subscribe to it so you can see when students ask a question. So after you're done creating your discussion boards, you'll be able to link it. I'm just going to copy this introduction discussion right here. I'm going to go to content area. So this is where all the lessons and learning modules would be. And so of course, when you use the template, you have these two options. You get to pick and choose if you want the folder view or if you want the learning module. I'm going to go into the learning module, and I am going to click tools, click on discussion board, and then you'll be able to link your discussion boards to the appropriate learning module or the content folder where your students will be able to access that link to create a thread and interact with one another with you as well. So it's two important steps. You have to create your threads in this discussion menu tab, and then you have to link your discussion board within the appropriate learning module for your online course, and so, or hybrid course. And so you click on tools, and then you'll click discussion board. So in order to link it, you're going to click select a discussion board forum, and I'm going to select introduction. You don't have to worry about anything else. You're going to click select a discussion board forum, and you're going to click introduction, and then you're going to click next. And so one of the things that you'll remember is that when we created these discussion boards, or that one discussion board in this menu tab, we already did all the settings. We connected it to the gradebook. You don't have to worry about any of those settings when you link the discussion board. All you have to do is make sure that you are able to copy the questions, expectations again. So putting it on a Word document is only going to help you to move over to this area. Okay, and so I am actually going to put it in HTML just because of the formatting. Update it, and then of course you can play around with it and move the text. Sometimes when you copy it from Blackboard to another part in Blackboard, it gives some formatting issues, but when you copy it from the Word document, you should be good to go with formatting. And so you would copy the questions here, and I am going to scroll down to show you the settings real quick. So you don't have to worry about these. The settings are already created in that initial discussion board thread that you created. So all you essentially have to do is do the title, your questions, and then click submit. And so everything that, all the settings that you created will be within this link. So you'll see that it has a little thumbtack. This is a link to the discussion board itself. So when I click on it, it's going to go to the discussion board and you can create a thread. So it goes to that discussion board. You'll be able to create a thread. You can participate in it. Your students will be able to create a thread. Whereas, so I'm going to go back to it real quick so you can see the link again. Nope. So content, module. So here's the link. You're really focusing on this one discussion and you're not seeing all of the discussions, right? So when I click there, you only see the introduction discussion and then they can create a thread. Whereas if you go to discussion board, all the discussion boards are there. And so that's why we recommend that you hide this tab so they don't get access to every discussion board and get ahead, so that they can stay on track and be able to participate in the discussions during the time, of that learning module. And so I'm gonna go back to content, and so that's how you link your discussion board. So you would go into each learning module and you would essentially do the same thing where you copy from your Word document, click on tools, click on discussion board, and you'll click select a discussion board. And so then same thing, click the one that you need to link to that, and then click next. And you would paste your questions here. I'm just gonna put questions for now. And then you don't have to worry about the settings because all of the settings were created when you did your thread, okay? And so then you'll click submit. And then you'll see that link to that discussion board here. So those are the two simple things. It seems like a lot, but I think once you guys start getting used to creating your discussion threads and then linking it to the appropriate learning module, it will get easier. And it, you do a few, it'll get easier with practice. But just keep in mind, you're going to create your discussion boards in the discussion board tab, and then you're going to link it in the content area in your learning module through the tools. Any questions about creating your discussion boards before we go into grading your discussion boards? Good. I want to try to keep it as simple as possible so that you guys know the simple steps to create your discussion boards and link it within your learning module. So this is good. So let's go into grading your discussion boards. So you'll go to Grade Center, and there's two ways that you can grade. You can go to Needs Grading, or you can go to your Full Grade Center, and they both essentially have the same kind of feel to accessing the or the layout to accessing your students' discussion boards, and you'll be able to provide feedback and grade them since it's linked to the gradebook. So if you do decide that you're going to grade your discussions, make sure that you mark that setting while you're creating the discussion board so you're not having to go back and link it to your discussion board. It's a little trickier if you forget to link it to the gradebook. It becomes a little trickier because it won't tell you which students needs grade, because after everyone responds to the discussion board, it's not, and if it's not linked to the gradebook, it's not going to give you the features that I'm about to show you. So if you're going to grade it, just make sure that you link it to the gradebook. So we're going to go first into needs grading. And so you'll see that I have a few attempts from students for the introduction post and the muddiest point form post. And so then, which is attached to the gradebook, and I'll be able to review their work. So I'm going to go to this introduction, and I am going to click on grade all users. And so it'll bring it to the gradebook where you'll be able to see their post. So you would see all their text here, or if it's a photo, or if it's a link to a video, and even attachments, you would see it in this area. And so then you would be able to read it and then grade it. And so just like your assignments or any other gradebook item, and you'll be able to, it's basically the same layout. You'll be able to put the grade in, and you'll be able to provide feedback. And there's other features in here if you want to use but for this, I would recommend just the grade and then the written feedback, because the fact that you probably have already given feedback and responded to them in the discussion thread. So really, the grade, entering the grade here and then clicking submit. And so then it would go to the next student that needs grading for this discussion. And so then you can read their response here, you can add their grade here. I'm not going to click submit right here because I'm going to show you the other feature of going into the full grade center, so that if you choose to do needs grading, or if you want to go into the full grade center on how to access their discussions. And so needs grading is one way to access. We wouldn't recommend replying in your needs grading. We would recommend going through your discussion board and replying to your students. And so I'll show you that here after showing you the full grade center features. So I'm going to exit here. I'm going to go into the full grade center. And so we have the needs grading circle over here. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow, the menu, and click on grade user activity. And as you can see, it's the same layout format. So really, it depends on how do you want to access your students' discussion boards. Would you prefer to do it in needs grading, or would you like to go into it through the full grade center and be able to read what they responded, and then provide their grade, and then click submit. And so I'm gonna click OK for right now. So it's pretty simple, especially if you've used assignments in Blackboard and you went to that training. It has a similar layout of how to access your discussion boards through Gradebook and grade it. What I'd like to do is I'm gonna quickly show you the actual introduction discussion thread. So we have two students that my student demos where they responded, and then I can go in and click reply and respond back to them. And you still have same features if you wanted to add an image, or if you wanted to get creative and you decided you want to do a few memes as a way to create some humor and community, where you do thumbs up for that's great discussion, and you can type up your response here and include an image, or you can just do your text-based response and then click submit. And then I clicked on the last thread, but if you'll see over here, it gives you the threads, one of two. So this was the first thread. Again, I can reply and respond here, and click submit. And you could even, there's the ability to email the author here, but that's not something that many people do. But I mean, you're more than welcome to test out these features. here's that quote feature we talked about. So then you can click on quote and select what part of the quote you wanted to reflect on, and include your response to that quote here, and then click submit. And so these are a few of the features, and so you'll see that you'll have a thread view from the initial response to all of the different replies. So that is basically the simple steps to create your thread, to link your thread to your learning modules, and how to access your students' discussions in Gradebook.